So if we jump to Pakistan, so what would be your message to Finnish or any other foreign companies about Pakistan today? How you see Pakistan developing in the near future?
Pakistan is, if you see in its international track record, it's a very compliant country. It has very few violations of international law, and I can say that as an ICC head, National Committee head, who's also been served on the board in Paris. It's just that there are regional issues, there are global geopolitical issues, and regional geopolitical issues. And maybe we have also not always taken the position which would endear us more to the how do we say civil society in certain other countries because of some of the older laws which had to be weaned away. For example, we have, of course, from the 70s, a culture which emanated with state enterprises. Now, it's still the state-owned enterprises is still an impediment in Pakistan, and is a condition now imposed by the IMF that we have to get rid of this. But it's a legacy from the 70s, and it's going to be. Of course, the banks have been deregulated and privatized, and all of that has happened over the past 30, 40 years. In fact, in many ways, our reform measures are quite up to date. Our compliance to international rules and regulations were good. Then we were unnecessarily dragged through 3 years of the FATF. You see, internationally, the chambers of commerce in free societies like ours, we consider ourselves a free society, they are private sector. Okay? Okay, the government may have regulations, some cases over-regulations. But in many countries, these chambers of commerce are public law. Pakistan's contribution is quietly known. And our role, we don't have, we also provide a lot of lawyers for a lot of, because, this has been throughout Pakistan's history. In fact, this morning I was reading about the manpower, technical know-how that we have exported since the early Independence Day of providing lawyers and technical people, whether it be in airlines, whether it be in legal and technical legislation that we have provided. And we continue to do that. So a lot of our common law, because we are a common law compliant country, again, that's very good for investors. And if they will make sure that they have all the arbitration provisions with their investment program, they will be completely secure. And these examinations are done by the legal people, both of the investor and the recipient country. So if a Finnish investor had to come to Pakistan, they would make the legal examination, and when they would make the legal examination, they would find that everything is compliant. How you negotiate your ICC deal, that's not within our purview, If you make a good deal, that's good for you. If you made a bad deal, that's your luck, I mean, the provisions are there, but the negotiations are not in our hands. We have to provide the platform for that. That's about it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, and a little bit linked to something that obviously most of the foreign companies are asking me about Pakistan. We just had election in Pakistan, and there's a new government in place. The instability of Pakistan is always a question. How you see the country going? There's new government. What is your view on let's say next 3 years?
Now, as far as the election is concerned, that was a procedure. It has been carried out. Now, if there are people who are now it happens every election. There are disputes on the results. There's a set procedure. You go to the tribunal, you go to the courts. You don't start upending the entire system. So if you have a dispute, there's a legal process. So the government is now more or less formed. I think the Senate elections are now in the process. So because the Senate election was delayed, because the election was delayed. So this will occur in the coming week or so. Your cabinet has been formed. We have a new finance minister who was originally from Abbey Bank, and before he was from JP Morgan. They usually keep a private sector person in place, so we hope that they will be able to resolve the issue. there is the constant issue of the 9.5% to GDP tax ratio, which they constantly keep reminding us of, which they want to see at 15 or 16%. And then they want us to, remove the restrictions on imports, because the imports were restricted in order to keep the balance of payment matter in hand. But also that depends on FDI. Now, the FDI is, they have created what we call the Special Investment Facilitation Council. It is now empowered, fully empowered. In fact, the legislation for it, that it is not subject to review of the cabinet. Its recommendations are final to the cabinet, okay? Because these are vital components in an investment chain which requires many interdepartmental commitments. So it's more like an administrative coordination body to make sure that nobody slips up along the way once an investment is committed. So that is a very major step, and for foreign investors, it would serve as a very good sense of security, and I'm sure your legations in our country will verify that, and so will your legal counsel. Nobody who does a foreign investment or participates in trade moves without a proper legal counsel, and I think that you do have the legal counsel available to you. And then there are other bodies like us, National Committee and all, which you can consult should you require that. We are always there to the legal counsel, with many of them you've already met.
I agree with you. SIFC is doing great work, and I think in the future that will be a very powerful entity.